have you all for the day 2 session on integrating activities to teaching. Without much further delay and introduction, let me invite the presenter and Principal, Shifa College of Arts and Science, Dr. Babu PK, for the presentation. Sir, please.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm sure you can hear me.
Very much, sir.
All right. Thank you, Sarida, Head of English at our college. And morning, everyone who have signed in to the Faculty Development Program hosted by Faculty Development Center at Shifa College of Arts and Science. On the second day of the program, we are looking at integrating activities to the session we teach. There are a couple of reasons why we have opted for this topic. Obviously, it was among the topics we have circulated among the staff in the training needs analysis form. But second, more important reason is that most of us spend a lot of time on lecturing, and lecturing, according to researchers, is the most boring teaching methodology existing today. So it is always necessary that we cut down on lecturing, minimize it, chunk it into 10 minutes or something, and try to integrate more activities into it. One reason. I would be providing further reasons to you as I move along. So with that brief line of introduction, telling you that if you go for tasks in the classroom, and if you try to combine activities of one kind or another into your teaching assignment, you can relax, your students would be more happy, you can make it more productive, and you can remove boredom out of your sessions. So let me take you to my presentation.
Screen is visible, sir.
My slide is visible, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right. Oh, do get back to me if you think the slide is gone, okay?
Of course, sir.
Yeah, all right, yeah. So this is about bringing in activities to the classrooms in higher education institutions, integrating activities. We call it very casually. Pedagogically, they call it tasks. Now, the first question I ask, I have already given you two reasons in reply to this question. Why use activities in the classroom? Because activities are more time consuming. You need to spend time preparation. There are logistic matters related to it. And there would be disciplinary issues coming up when you try to run activities. So why do we do that? This is what I'm looking at first. Then I'll be looking at how do we do that, right? And then I also be providing some samples of integrating it. Now, why use activities in the classroom? I'll be very honest and tell you that I have been talking about this particular area for about last uh, 23 years about integrating activities in the classroom. I don't want to make you pessimistic, but let me state the fact that I haven't seen a lot of conference attendees, workshop attendees, seminar or faculty development program attendees comfortably switching into the activities format. I would explain the reasons. I have partially explained the reasons, but I would explain. So I do not know how many of you would be attempting to run activities seriously in the classroom after this. But if one could be converted onto the side of proactivity bandwagon, proactivity group, I'd be delighted. Now, according to an old study conducted among higher secondary level students, higher secondary level student age group in UK, the students responded to the question, what engages us? The research was on what can make the classes more engaging, more involving for the students. And they said that working with peers, their opportunity to work among their friends, their classmates, the peer group, working with technology is the second one they asked for. They would like to be possessing classrooms, involving in classrooms where more and more technology use is possible for them. Application-oriented, technology application-oriented teaching. They wanted connecting to the real world. You are handling adult students, and adult students, they come with beliefs of their own, attitudes of their own. And whenever they do something, they would like to know why they are doing it. What is the connection with reality? How are they going to benefit out of what they learn? So they wanted teaching to be connected to the real world. Obviously, they want teachers who love their job. And then they wanted opportunities to get out of their seats, rather than always pinned down to the chairs, the benches, whatsoever. They wanted opportunity to move out of their seats. They wanted visuals, more and more visuals in the classroom. They wanted choice, like they wanted to be consulted regarding what happens in the classroom. They wanted the teachers to understand them. They wanted variety in teaching methodology, instructional practices. And they wanted the teachers to know that they are also human, with the limitations, right? With the possibility of errors in it. All those things. I'm not getting into the details. In fact, this is the opening slide of a 3-hour presentation, which I have been doing for some time. Colored bullet points I have given. Work with peers, connecting to the real world, get me out of my seat, bring in visuals, let us have variety. If you want, you can even add working with technology and give us choice. All these elements which the student community emphasized are elements which are important to activities and tasks in the classroom. So the bulk of the findings of the research clearly indicate that the students are definitely demanding active learning strategies which involve peers, connection to real world, getting out of their seats, mobility, visuals, variety, wherever possible, integrating technology and all. This is one reason we should pay attention to the activity part. Building on what I said yesterday, we are looking at client satisfaction, student satisfaction, and student involvement. If this is what we are looking for, these elements and the satisfaction of the students, it's not that whether you engage classes, you may be engaging them, but they may not be engaged by your classes. It's more about, are you really connecting to them in terms of your activities, connecting to them and making them involve in what you do. Now, moving further, answering the question why activities. See, neuroscience, if you are interested in neuroscience, you would definitely know this already. And if this makes you curious, you can always refer and try to know more about neurosciences than mind, body, and learning, MBL. See, neurosciences state that active learning takes advantage of the process actions in the brain and promote memory. Key words from that are multiple neural connections in the brain and active learning at the beginning. So if you want multiple neural connections in the brain, and if you want activities which would promote memory, please tasks, activities, and all that. This is science. And this is pure science. I'm continuing with the same question. Why active learning strategies? I have put a lot of text on the slide, which I normally do not do, but apologies, it's because this is important. Let me walk you through the bullet points. Cognitive functions associated with the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy, I'm sure many of you will know that, such as understanding, remembering. Cognitive functions like understanding and remembering are associated with hippocampus,
Kindly wait, everyone. I think there is some network issue at sir's end. Let me connect him and get back to you. Sorry for the inconvenience. Excuse me, Mr. Tabshir, your phone is on, your microphone is on. Kindly mute it. Mr.
Am I
Tabshir?
back?
Hello?
Am
Okay,
I
thank you.
back, Sarita?
Yes, sir, you are. You are.
If it happens again, I'll change my connection.
Okay, okay, sir.
How is my slide now?
Yes, sir. Slide is okay, sir, but your voice is breaking.
Oh, 1 minute.
Now it's clear, sir. Now it's clear.
It's clear.
Yeah.
All right, but still, I think I'll prepare a backup plan, and if it
So
breaks
should I?
again or you lose
Huh.
connection, please let me know.
Sir, it's still.
So I was on this slide, right?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your voice is breaking, sir. Should we do something from our end?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. I think, sir, it is a common. Sir left. I think it's a common error because many have left the meeting. Let us wait for the speaker. Kindly excuse. Extremely sorry for the technical glitches. Sir, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Is my screen fine? Can you see the slide?
Yes.
This is a slide I was working on when I lost my connection. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Let's carry on. So see, I'm sorry about that, but that happens beyond things under my control. Okay. I'm apparently on a strong connection, but apparently. Okay. So I'm talking about see how brain functions. I'm trying to connect neuroscience on the one hand and Bloom's taxonomy on the other hand. To quickly summarize, what I was telling you is cognitive functions related to lower level of Bloom's taxonomy, like understanding and remembering, are connected with hippocampus. That's a brain area. And this area is responsible for memory and awareness. And higher functions like creating, evaluating, analyzing, applying, these involve cortical areas. And these areas are responsible for decision making, association, and motivation. If you combine these two statements, you would realize that more complex thought processes are beneficial for learning because they involve greater number of neural connections and neurological crosstalk. We want mental processes which would connect all the areas which are mentioned in Bloom's taxonomy, all levels like understanding, remembering, creating, evaluating, applying, analyzing, so on and so forth, for which we need variety, we need action. So the kind of learning we try to provide in the classroom should involve greater number of neural connections. And this neurological cross-talk among different components, different levels we have mentioned is possible through active learning processes. Active learning strategies like tasks, games, activities, this can take advantage of this cross-talk, and with such strategies, you can stimulate a variety of areas of the brain and you can promote better memory. This is a bit of a science and I have brought it in because you shouldn't feel that tasks and games are brought in just for the fun of it. Absolutely not. We have clear researches indicating that we should do it, and you have your students telling you that you should do it. Now, how do you introduce moderate stress? I'm talking about stress because look at this image. As for this image, which comes from Daniela Kofer, I'll provide share the details later. According to this image, it says that if there is very little stress, not much learning takes place. And if there is too much stress, again, not much learning takes place. So what is recommended is moderate stress for the students, even though it varies from student to student. Of course, I'm talking about it. So we are looking at like instigating learning. I'm deliberately using the word instigating, provoking curiosity and interest on the part of the learner, and for which we are trying to pitch our classroom presence, pitch our classroom activity at the right spot. And the golden spot for that, of course, is not too low, not too high, but somewhere in the middle. And there are many ways in which you can introduce moderate stress. Daniela, the faculty and the researcher Daniela Kofer I have mentioned, this faculty member occasionally uses music before class. Said playing unfamiliar music before class can put them in the mood to be ready to listen to you. And changing up the format of discussion, do not go into the classroom and deliver the content in exactly the same fashion. Change up. This agrees with what the student said earlier about give us variety. Don't be predictable. If you're being predictable, you will be often end up being boring. So changing format, introducing learning activity requiring individual participation or movement. This is our point, the third one. Try to bring in active learning strategies, tasks, games, activities, theatricals, fun, group work into the classroom. That would require individual attention and movement. So these are the kind of activities you can go for to make you pitch your class at the right spot. So it's not too easy, it's not too hard. And doing that would help them, as I said, like this classic inverted curve, which tells you that don't make it too challenging for them. Even when you design question papers, they say that a good question paper is one in which average number of students should be capable of answering around 70% of the questions. If you make the question paper too hard, it's a problem. Too easy, it's again another kind of a problem. Similarly, make it not too stressful, or don't make it less straightforward. It becomes such a cakewalk for your students. Now, this is what I've been talking about, the different, not a very clear pic, different parts. We spoke about neocortex and hippocampus, right? We talked about different levels according to Bloom's taxonomy, remembering at the bottom, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. And we are trying to connect, to summarize, we are trying to connect the neuroscience on the one hand, sorry, and with the kind of teaching strategies we use in the classroom. Now, if you engage them in learning tasks, let me repeat, it makes them remember your material better, because they have a kind of ownership to what they do. They would like to believe that they have done it. And obviously that would improve their level of confidence. So learning task makes them remember matter. It makes them figure out how to apply and extend new knowledge more effectively. Application is quite important. When we were trying to apply flipped learning in the classrooms, we were emphasizing the fact that a part of the classroom, a part of the class time should be specifically set apart for application-centered activities. It's not just gathering information and knowledge. It is more about putting that information into practice through application. And tasks would always promote learning among students from different backgrounds. I'll come to it again. You group your students, and when you group your students, you are providing an opportunity for your students to come together. And you are not using the same grouping. Your grouping strategies should be different. Otherwise, in a classroom, on your left, you will have one person, and on your right, you will have another person. And some students are very reluctant to be separated from the neighbors on both sides. When you go into an activity, you are bringing different combinations of students together, and who may come from different background, who may have multiple learning styles. This is excellent learning opportunity, sharing opportunity to know and understand each other too. And that is another reason why we should try to switch into learning tasks which are collaborative. We're talking about collaborative learning, group learning, in which students come together. See, it's always necessary for you to remember that when you form a group, it's like a community, a microcosm of the larger macrocosm, a small community, and students would be active there. And there's a social element, relationship building element involved in it. It would be contextual. It would be engaging them, and it would be student-owned, lead to deeper learning. They have something to do, they believe. They quickly forget that the teacher is responsible for making them do the activity. They take ownership. It's their activity, they would like to believe, and they have to do it. It's their responsibility. I'm not talking about the other advantage. The teacher will be silent. You can save your breath. You can save your energy. You can just move around. You can stretch your muscles, right? So this is something you need to remember when you try to give them group work, that the impact of learning which is collaborative. Now, a lot of material I have spoken to you, I have taken from an article from the Berkeley Edu website, in which it mentions specifically research by Daniela Koffer. And the article was titled, you have a video also there, beautiful, listen to it. It's a short video. What can neuroscience research teach us about teaching? This is what the article is asking. The article is saying that neuroscience and brain-related research, she's talking about MBL, mind-body learning, an interesting area. She says that research has so far focused on brain and learning, neuroscience and learning, and it has been giving less attention to neuroscience and teaching. And she says that this is an interesting area and needed necessarily so that we can, within quotes, we can engage and involve our students better. So please try to, you can take a screenshot of the slide and try to listen to it among hundreds of other things you listen to. Let knowledge too be part of your fun. Okay. Now, moving on, I'll go to the next stage and talk about more earthly kind of things. Of course, we all agree that tasks are important. Applying activities and games in the classroom is important. Then your question can be, how can I do that? Now, this is what I'm looking at next. Before you plunge into it, you should take a plunge into it. If you just lecture a lot, however brilliant speaker you are, you will be boring a lot. This is a foregone conclusion. So I would talk about a lot of no's at the beginning. Please do not try to run a game, use a task, integrate an activity just for the sake of an activity. As I remarked yesterday, quality for paper's sake, quality for idea's sake, or a practice for knack's sake is quite nonsense. Don't try to do that. We don't want that. If you're running an activity, it should be because it's needed and it's useful for the successful run of your session. Number 2, do not run an activity without a learning objective. Fun for fun's sake doesn't make any sense. A group activity for group activity's sake, so that you can tick the boxes. If the principal is asking you, if NAC is asking you, have you run an activity? Then you would like to tick the box. Do not do it to tick the box. Okay. Every activity you run should have a learning objective. End of the activity, the tasks, they would have learned something. And then do not run into the classroom and organize an activity without proper preparation. That is never advised, and that would be a disaster too. Your students are quite intelligent enough to know when you run an activity to kill time. They know that. So do not underestimate their level of intelligence with that. I know many of us run into the class and lecture without proper preparation. We switch on and switch off like you switch on a light or switch off a fan. You will turn on your talking shop radio lecture and go blah, 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 blah for 40 minutes, and you will stop it inherently. We are all kind of programmed to deliver lectures that way. Maybe we are all born lecturers who can jump out of the bed and lecture. But we are not born runners of activity who can get out of sleep and run an activity. So any activity you talk about, there's the logistic side for that. There's a lot of preparation which should go into it. Don't run it to kill time, or because you have an assignment to check, or you have a call to answer, or you have a colleague to chat with, or you have a meeting to attend. Please do not do that. Now, when you get ready, when you prepare, ask yourself some significant questions. Number 1, why are you running the activity? As I said, the answer should not be you are busy, you have a meeting, you have a call to attend, you need to check your social media, oh, you need to be free, you had a tiring night. No. Why are you running the activity should be answered. This particular activity will be useful in delivering the idea you are trying to deliver. If you're trying to teach something, that is your learning objective, okay? You think this idea can connect better, and that this is interesting. This is level appropriate. This is appropriate to the level of intelligence of the students, level of learning of the students, and this is of the right duration. This is a 10-minute activity, and that is okay. So try to have answers for it. And number 2, when are you planning to run it during the session? Without a plan of action and lesson plan, this is difficult. You should know the exact point at which you will run that activity or task in the classroom. And they should have enough learning to comfortably participate in that activity. They should not be short on information. They should not be lacking knowledge to participate in that. So timing is important. Their level of interest is important. Level of learning, as I said, is important. The information they possess is important. Their certain activities require your students to do necessary homework. So their homework or their preparedness is important. How long will it take? Is it a 10-minute activity? Is it a 1-minute activity? Will it take 30 minutes? You have to decide on that. What kind of an activity it is? In the sense that will be a pair work, whole class work, individual? Does it involve video? Does it involve audio of some kind? Whatever. Decide on that. And most importantly, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of the activity, what is it they would have learned? Closure is very important. At the end of the activity, you will have an objective that they should be familiar regarding how to run a group discussion. At the end of the activity, they should learn about how is solar energy produced. They should have an answer for that. So learning objective is very central to the whole idea of running a task. And what are the materials needed? You have to photocopy, you have to take printouts, you may need photographs, you may need video, you may need questionnaire, maybe you will need recording devices, you may need markers, you may need eraser, pencils, scales, a lot of materials, a bucket full of water, sometimes hats, whatever, depending on that. Are you prepared in terms of materials? You may need power supply, all right? You may need speakers. Is it an individual, pair, or group? I told you earlier. If group, how are you going to group them? This is important. Now, do you have 20 students? Then what kind of group? If you have 21 students, what kind of group? If you planned for 20 and 3 students are absent, how do you think on your feet and rework the grouping? And how will you conclude it? The second most important thing after learning objective is closure. Conclusion is important because sometimes you start an activity, you were not serious about it, and the bell goes, you couldn't complete it on time, and you will just walk off. When you behave like that with an activity, the problem is your students would begin to take it very lightly. They wouldn't take it seriously later. They may think that this is a fill gap exercise and this is not serious. So do not do that. There should be a proper closure. So these are all serious questions you need to ask yourself as part of the readiness strategy for your classes when you get ready. There is a classroom management factor in this. Often teachers do not try a task in the classroom because they feel that the moment you lift the traditional discipline structure and begin to run a game in the classroom or an activity in the classroom, students would get indisciplined. They would talk, they would turn around, or they would be more relaxed, they would be whispering more, they may move around. See, this is part of the game. It happens. But it doesn't mean that a task-centered classroom is a very loose classroom. You have to establish classroom rules. Whether you run an activity or whether you are, even if you are boring them with a lecture, a long lecture, I mean, you need to have rules, classroom rules, like what to do and what not to do when they are in the classroom. Similarly, when you are running an action-packed session, an activity, you should have rules for an activity classroom. They may be moving around, possible, but they are not talking. Maybe they can whisper among themselves, but they shouldn't raise their voice beyond the limit. No cross talking from one group to another. And in the group itself, when one person talks, the rest should be quiet. You don't want a situation in which they all heatedly shout among themselves. This is not recommended. So you need to establish those ground rules regarding what they are supposed to do and they are not expected to do as part of their running activity session. You should keep an eye on whether they are on task or they are moving away from the task. This is important. It can happen. When they are relaxed, they may talk about cricket, football, videos, their friends, a home, tour, a lot of other things. So keep their on task focus, and you have to control the noise and movement, as I said. And the teacher's role is to be around and to make sure that they are on task. This is important. And then generally, this is expected structure of a group work. If you look at the 5 elements, I have given you lots of close to 10 questions earlier, but I would say the most important elements in a group work or a task, not necessarily group work, is learning objective, a specific task, the expected result out of it, and the time you assign for that, and how do they report their findings, their conclusion at the end of what they do. This is the 5-element formula you need to apply to whatever group work you try to do in the classroom. Which means if you take one out of it, the group work will not work. Without learning objective, it falls flat. Without expected result out of it, it's inconsequential. And if there is no specificity for the tasks, well, you cannot have expected learning outcome at the end. And without reporting the conclusion as part of the closure, the whole thing fails to work. So please make sure that this LSE-TM kind of equation is seriously followed when you prepare for your activity. I know it's difficult for you to quickly switch to an activity. One reason is, let me be honest, we could be a bit lazy, and uh, lecturing comes easy for us. You have been teaching the same author for 5 years, the same topic for 10 years, right? So you know the content like the back of your hand. You're damn familiar with every equation, every example, every story, every joke. Even every joke you repeat would come precisely at the same point. So even after 10 years, the same joke will be repeated by some of us. So lecturing comes, you think it's your second skin, and it comes so naturally to you. That's easy. So because it is something hands down, you can do hands down, you will go for that. But an activity requires preparation, minor research, getting ready, a lot of planning, uh, effective time management, all right, moving around, and the logistical part of it, making the whole thing, the stuff carry, making students involved in it. Otherwise, you think you are talking and everyone is listening. A teacher has a talking shop. And you think when you talk shop means you talk about something seriously, okay? When you talk shop, you means you're really talking shop. Everyone is listening to you, which is a huge misunderstanding, all right? So I'll come back, try to focus on LSETM equation when you get ready. The next thing is, all right, you are in the class, you have introduced the task, the students are involving in doing the task. What should the teacher do when the task is on? The first thing you have to give importance to is monitor what the students are doing and ensure that the different groups are involved in it. You should not park yourself near the table. You should not park yourself near the lectern and do some other work. Don't think that while the students are doing the task, you can check answer scripts. That is nonsense. Don't do that. When students are doing the task, your attention is on students who are distributed in different parts of the group, of the room, and involving a different activities, maybe in different paces, different manners. This is why it requires more attention from your side. When you're lecturing, everyone is looking at you, at least, even if they are somewhere else, okay? They are at least looking at you, but in this case, they are all maybe forming a circle in different parts. So you won't be able to see their face if you do not move around. You may not be able to know what they are doing if you don't move around. So move around, monitor the work, talk to them, and ask them what is it they are going through. Ask them where they are. Ask them how much of it is done. Ask them, do they find any difficulty with it? Compliment for the work they are doing. But one possibility is when you roam around, they might ask you for the answer. They might say that, see, this is very difficult. What is this? Usually, we feel like helping our students because it's our job. they find it difficult. So let me give the answer. Don't do that. Control your urge to do that. I would advise you not to do that, and I would ask you to interact with the student and ask about the difficulty. Maybe you can give a light clue, a faraway hint or something, because if you provide answer, they will not work on it. So let the student talk to other students in the group, let them discuss, and let them see there is a way out, a solution for that. So if they ask for answer, do not provide the answer. Do not try to support them in that fashion. You're just moving around, maybe giving a hint here and there, that is all. And if they find it so difficult, you can even ask one of the students to talk to the other group if they are doing the same kind of a task. Let them talk to the other group and try to find what they have done, how they have reached the answer. So don't rush to help them too much. If you do that, they won't do it on their own, right? So support wherever necessary, but your support should not be jumping in and providing the whole lot of answers at the first go. Let them struggle with the activity a bit. That struggling is also part of learning for them. And this is why you should interfere only if interference is called for. If the activity is working smooth, things are going fine, you just melt into the background. You be there. You don't have to make your presence felt too strongly. They know that you are there, and they should know that you are watching them. They should know that you know the progress of the work they are doing, and you know what's happening in different groups. That is it. But you are a kind of a ghostly presence in the backdrop. You will, as I said, melt into the backdrop, become part of the air over there, and spiritually moving around. If everything is going fine, if learning is happening on its own, the teacher can step back. Why not? That is why you can step in only when, if it's really called for, really necessary. And make sure the task comes to a logical end. I said earlier, we need closure for the task. If there is no closure, if there is no conclusion, they may think that the whole thing was fun. This is not fun for fun's sake. As I said, this is fun for learning's sake. So it is important that they realize what kind of learning has been produced because of the task they were assigned. This is why bring the task, the game, to the logical end. And when you bring it to an end, you will be emphasizing, you will be clearly telling them, we have gone through this game, or we have run this activity, you have done this task because you were learning something, and this is what you have learned. This is what you have understood, realized, what you have found out as a result of this task. This is important. Never let that part slip out of your memory, of your plan. Now, the question is, what kind of, I spoke about many kind of categorizations. See, we talk about group work a lot. what kind of activities can you use in terms of splitting them? One obviously is activity which is individual, in which each student will be involving on his own or on her own. It has got its advantages and disadvantages. All of them do. And when you do it, each person is working in isolation. All right. And as I said, there is no cross-talk, peer collaboration coming into it. That is one thing. And a person cannot get the assistance of another person, which is possible in a group. And it is recommended that if you have an activity which will take maybe from 30 seconds to 1 minute, then you can run it as an individual activity. If you're wondering what can be done in 1 minute, there are lots of activities, simple, short, one word, one line, one blank, one answer, one tick, activities possible as individual tasks. So if you have given all of them a question, and if you are asking each one of them to answer that blank based on their individual choices, individual preferences, individual experiences, that will take perhaps 5 seconds or 10 seconds sometimes. The conclusion you have to make is very short, really short activities can be individual activities for each students to do individually. And you have to occasionally try that. Sometimes they have to work on their own, fully independent, completely cut off, without getting any kind of assistance from others. That too is necessary. This is why occasionally you can give, now and then you can give individual work. Then whole class working on the same thing. Now whole class simultaneously working on one activity is just like your regular class. That is it. You put a question on the slide, you write a question on the board, and you're asking everybody to work together. If the whole class works together as one group, it will be a bit messy and unmanageable. There will be a lot of cross conversation going on, cross talking going on, and it's difficult to have a unified group over there. Space can be a problem. So only if you have a lot of space and you have a large hall and where some noise is okay, only if it is so, you can think about a whole class activity. Otherwise, you'll have to keep away. The other interesting combination which we often do is a pair work. Many teachers try to do pair work because pair work can be run with less dislocation of the pieces of furniture. All right. The student will pair with a neighboring student. So it's easy in terms of running it. You don't have a problem of furnitures moving, noise produced, students moving around. that time of confusion and messiness, the time for planning can be saved there. This is okay, but the only limitation is the student would be working with a neighbor, with a friend, with a bosom mate kind of a friend, and that unfamiliarity angle will not work. The student is not paired often with a student not very familiar with him or her. If you can pair a student from the front bench with a student in the back bench, like students who do not normally sit together, move together, travel together, that is what I would always recommend wherever possible. Then group work. We know there are different kinds of group possible. You talk about groups of 10, groups of 20. They say that a good group should not have more than 5. It's because there is some God written rule about it. It's more because if you have too many members in one group, students may end up, some students may not involve in the work given. So more members in a group, the more the possibility that some students may keep away, may not involve. Or they might even come to the conclusion that the system is working, the group is working on its own, and their participation is not really called for. This is the huge risk involved. And this is why I would recommend teachers to go for short groups wherever possible. A group of 5 would be great. But obviously, there are certain activities for which you are forced to go for a bigger group. Maybe more hands are needed, more participation is needed. When it is really necessary to group them in that fashion, please try to do it by assigning them role. So one will be keeping time, another student will be recording the inputs, another person will be making the plans. That way, each student may be given a particular role inside the group. When a role is given, the students would be more alert to the work they have to do. They will be more focused on the responsibility which is assigned to them. So, and one more thing I would like to mention is, what kind of a grouping you do will depend on the kind of activity you run to. And sometimes the time you have allotted also. So this is why think of the end results you expect and plan it accordingly. Now, towards the end, we will talk about some specific examples of group or group tasks or group activities possible. I would repeat what I said earlier. It's not easy. It needs homework, both on the part of the teacher and on the part of the students. And in all probability, or in all certainty, the preparation on the part of the teacher would be much more than the part of the student. So prepare early for these kind of activities. For example, simple things will be student presentations. Very simple. One student is making a presentation, maybe a 2-minute presentation or 3-minute presentation on one aspect of what you are planning to teach. Sorry. You have wonderful students there. All right. Some of them brilliant, some of them may be ordinary, but still you can push them. If teacher expectations of student performance are higher, then student performance will get better. Research has proved it. Okay. So make student presentation. Student presentation can be a student simply making a formal presentation, or a student in the form of a role play. If you're talking about, for example, maybe one researcher, and if you're learning about the contributions of a researcher, that student will become the researcher. And for those few minutes, this particular student will become Daniela Kofer, for example. This particular student will become Paul Hoffman. This particular student can become a doctor in a hospital. This particular student can become a researcher in immunology, and he or she would present. And you have to explain more about it only if necessary. Otherwise, the student presentation is the beginning and the end of it. Don't kind of insult your students by simply repeating what the students have spoken in the presentation. Second, it can be student readings. The reading part of a text and explaining it. Simple. But even that is better than too long, rambling, boring teacher lecture. Now, student short videos will be there. Short by them, short S-H-O-R-T, short in nature, but short by them. They can shoot videos and bring. But always set time limit. If a 3-minute video explaining something, they have shot themselves maybe, or they have recorded an interview with 3 questions from a doctor, from a pharmacist, from a technician, from an actor, whatever, and that would be presented. There could even be dramatizations. Even in a science class, there can be a drama involving 2 scientists. 2 scientists arguing about the comparative benefits of their research. There can be simulations. The lab situation can be simulated in the classroom. Different students in the role of different researchers and talking about their findings. So you would pretend the classroom is a lab, a high-tech, high-end lab. Role play, I said, can be role play like dramatizations. You're enacting a drama in the class. They love it. Students really love it. And if they want to dress up, let them dress up. It's fun. They can come with spare dress, wear that, and then those dresses they would present it. There could be class debate, the whole class debating. One half talking in support, another half talking against. There is even activity in which one person will talk for 20 seconds supporting something, and immediately the same student will talk against the same idea. That's a very interesting activity. Case studies can be used. There can be gap-filling activities. You come to the class with a printout, and in the printout, you are removing certain parts from it in each sentence or from many sentences. It's almost like fill in the blank. They are filling the gaps into it. And you can have two groups in which different gaps are given there. Or you can give two texts with slightly different content, and they have to talk and discuss both of them and see what are the differences in it. There would be some similarities, but there would be some differences too. And because of the differences, the conclusion of one passage would be quite different from the conclusion of the other passage, which is important. There are simple fish bowl kind of activity in which maybe you do that. You come to the class with a box, and the box will be full of small pieces of paper. And on those pieces of paper, you have written topics. And the topics you have written are related to what you are meaning to teach on the day in the class. And they would pick one of them. They should be ready for anything. They should pick one of them and talk about it for 1 minute. You can even go for another activity called 1 minute essay. I know that no essay can be written in 1 minute, but you would give them a question at the end of the class. You would give them a question, and the question you give to them would be related to the content you have taught that class. And then that question they have to answer within 1 minute. This is one way of checking what they have learned. And sometimes we do it in a different format. What we do is, you will simply ask them to complete one sentence. The sentence would be starting like this. What I have learned from the class today is, then they fill up. The takeaway from today's lecture or today's class is, the rest is blank, which they will be filling up. That is one way of making sure that there was a learning process happening, and they were expected to pay attention to it, and making them aware that at the end of the session, you are going to check the amount of learning in one way or the other. There are TPR, the good old games, think, pair, share. You ask a question, you ask them to think about it, and then you will make them, you will pair them, and you will ask them to share with each other what they think about a particular topic. All these things can be used in the class. See, I'm not asking you to fill all of your classes with activities. I know that activities are challenging. I know that very well. And what I'm trying to tell you is, make your classes more engaging and less boring. And we are all overconfident about our capacity to lecture. Can you use at least one activity once a week? Begin like that in a class. Or then move to using 2 activities in a week. So you can gradually slide into it. Suddenly you are not transforming, because we know the challenges which are involved in designing, delivering an activity. So you don't have to do it overnight, but you can take it slow. This is better for classroom discipline classroom engagement, building relationship among your learners. And as I said, make your classes less boring. Internet carries millions of ideas and activities for you. You just have to search and download and customize the material, because the learning level and competence of your students would be different from the students for whom the task was assigned by somebody else. This is why you would be customizing for your audience, and then you will try to run it. I stop over there with the advice that begin to switch into it. Try to make your work more challenging. Lecturing is easy, but lecturing is boring. Their attention span, even when I'm talking to you, attention span is like 10, 15 minutes at the maximum. After that, it can wander off. They will deposit their bodies over there, and the soul will go for a walk, and will come back later when you are about to finish. So make yourself more interesting so that they would remember the neuroscience and memory retention I spoke about earlier. They would remember your classes more. With that, I stop, and Sarita, if anyone has got any questions, I can try to take that.
Thank you, sir. The floor is open for questions. Participants, if you have any question, you can unmute your microphone and ask, or you can put it in the chat box. Sir, no questions so far.
See, one obvious question which I normally get is that, like, can we do it in a large class? Certain activities can be run in large classes. Certain activities, but not all activities. But any kind of activity is better than no activity. I tell my faculty members always that, see if your class involves 4 things, the usual L, S, R, W. Your students should have something to listen to. They should have an opportunity to speak something. They should be made to write something, maybe a couple of sentences. And they should have something to read. So listening, speaking, reading, writing. They may be listening to an audio. They may be watching and listening to a video in the classroom. They're reading something, writing something, and they should have an occasional opportunity to speak something in them. If this mix up, if you can get it, like L, S, R, W, here and there in one session, your sessions will be beautiful sessions. Lovely for them to listen to. All right. So that is what I would suggest at the end.
Sir, a very good morning, sir. I'm Dr. Tilakapur, principal of ISN, and it's a very good interactive session. If it is like in between, just if we are making it as a group discussion, like a discussion based in the sense, it will be more effective, because overall just you have stuffed the matter completely. It's very good to listen. But in between, just if it is interactive session, the sense we will also be and more involved in this session. And that's my suggestion. But it's too good morning session. Really, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are advising that there can be break in between, like maybe after 15-20 minutes or when I finish one concept, I can break there.
Yes, sir, because we are practicing the teaching session only. So just whatever the tactics are different, individual differences are there. So if you are making it as a participation session in the sense, just they will be their view, they will be just sharing. So it will be more interactive session. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sure. I can. I try that in the academic college sessions, and sometimes I get questions, and sometimes I don't. But it's
Yes,
okay.
sir.
It's a good
Yes.
suggestion. I'll try again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. But it's a very grateful, sir. Thank you. Nice session.
Welcome. Thank you for the suggestion.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Reena. Yes, Dr. Reena.
Sir, I would like to ask you a question. That is, I would like to know one thing. In my class, often there are more than 120 students because we are conducting combined classes. It's common course English class. So we are conducting combined class, combining physics, botany, economics, and math students. Most often it will contain more than 120 students. So can you suggest any activity that is applicable, which can be applied in my classes?
Dr. Reena, your question is a familiar question, and there are two things I would like to mention about it. Number one, as language teachers, we need to write to the university, write to the government, bring discussion on the social media regarding the size of the language classrooms. I tell all my audience that first, because the feeling that science can be taught to a less number of people in a group, and arts and humanities can be taught with a large number of people is something I cannot stomach. Or core subject only 40 students, complementary subject 60 students, language 100 and 120 is simply unacceptable. Language becomes equally important and more important in their life because to transact any matter in the future, they need language. So I would come to the second part of my answer afterwards, but I would like you to always ask this question: why do they put 100, 120 students into a language classroom? They should stop it. And we need to fight for that, all of us. Write to the Board of Studies, write to the registrar, write to the education minister. Because later they will have ASAP taking loan from the World Bank, 500 crores and all, and they are spending a lot of money that way. Better than they can create more teaching jobs. That's the first part. Now, the second part, what is it we can do in terms of application? One thing, pair work can be done with minimum dislocation. Think, pair, share is a simple activity you can use. You ask a question, you ask them to think about it, you pair the neighboring students together, and they share what they have, what they think about it. And you can ask some of the students to share it openly. We cannot ask all of the students to share it openly because time can be a problem. If you have 120 students, there will be 60 pairs. If there are 60 opportunities given, 60, 10 seconds, you know how much time it takes. Second, I have tried, and I have seen people trying, 2 benches coming together as a group. They'll be facing each other. One set of students on one bench will turn around and they would form a group there. So if there are 40 benches, desks and benches over there, there will be 20 groups there. And you can give a 5-minute activity like that. Gap filling exercises are good for them sometimes. You take a text, put gaps in it, you create the text, take printout, right? You have to make copies, invest some money out of your salary for that, or maybe the college will take care of the expenses involved and give it to them. Gap filling activity, even jumbling activity. You jumble sentences, part of a theory, part of a concept. ask them to sequence it properly from 1, 2, 3, 4, the right one at the beginning, then the next one kind of thing. And they have to sequence it together. That can be yet another one. And then even if you go for role play, you don't have to pick everyone for a role play. From a group of 120, you can pick maybe 4 or 5 of them. Then pick another 4 or 5 of them on another day. And that can fill maybe 10, 15 minutes of your class time. So it may not be possible because of the size to run certain things, but certain things are always possible, Dr. Reena. That's what I think. I have tried it. Okay. Occasionally,
thank
you
you,
can
sir.
borrow an hour from other classes and make it a longer class, so that longer duration can help you, right? And sometimes take them into the auditorium also, if you have an auditorium. So you have so much of space. Not every day. Occasionally, you can try that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So if there's nothing else coming, Sarita, we can wind up. They are free to raise the questions even tomorrow, or mail the questions if they have any questions. Put it in the chat box or send message to the WhatsApp group. Vishua will take those questions. So thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir, and thank you one and all. Meet you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Thank you.